Hello, we're back on Gelvin Valley, and I've I've made some changes to this combine. I have a couple videos that I did. I called them combine surgery. The last time we had a video here, there was a number of things, when we went through as it was harvesting, looking at the combine where maybe some improvements could be made, and well, I think on one of them I probably way overdid it. Probably looking at this, you wonder if we had a yellow combine in the field. We did. It's just now very, very dirty. So one of the things that I did to it, obviously, is the dirt, which you can see, and has to do with editing the texture files. And like I say, I think I overdid it. So much so that I had to edit other parts that were already dirty just to get them to match. I see here one that I didn't do it with is, this New Holland piece right here. It was a royal pain. It was in several different texture files, so it was a fair amount of work to get all this on there. Another thing I did is we talked about the feeder housing, and you can just barely see that little paddle in there right at the tip of where I'm running the mouse. I got it so that when the combine is harvesting and engaged, that little thing in there spins just like it would in real life. Does anybody care? Well, probably not. I'm not sure I even care, but I learned something new in terms of getting it going, so that's a good thing. Another thing that we did, you'll notice you can see grain in here, and if I hop inside and turn the player around, now we can see grain in the grain tank, and it seems to be filling and working the way it's supposed to be. So that part's good. Got that all fixed. And here in the back, if you recall correctly, when the hillside was full up, meaning it was heading uphill or whatever, and the hind end of the combine was raised up into the air, you could see the straw coming out the back, but it would only come down part way, and it always, to me, it just didn't look very, very realistic. It should come all the way to the ground. So I think I have that fixed, so the straw will drop all the way. And in a previous session, this is the straw chopper back here. The chopped straw was coming kind of through the middle of the hind end of the combine instead of kind of down along this edge. So I think that's also been fixed. And I can't get around that dirt. It looks hideous. It needs a cleaning job. I also fixed, that's about as far as I can zoom in on the player, his hands, where he's touching the steering wheel. I move the position of it so that his hand is literally on the wheel and will turn with it, as you can kind of see here. So that part's fixed. The part that I couldn't fix, you'll see that speed or shifting lever over here moving. I tried to put his right hand on that lever, and no matter what I've tried, I can't get his hand around that particular lever there. It could be the model for the person in there doesn't extend any further, so it isn't able to grab it. But it will move, his hand will move a little bit with the shifting of the lever when you're turning the steering wheel at the same time. So I'll just try that here. You can see how it kind of goes back and forth a little bit, but all on its own, it just won't do that. But now here I've explained in just a couple minutes the things I did to it, and it took me hours to try to figure all this out and do it, but that's kind of the part of the fun of it. But anyway, I guess we can get him going and continue on the harvest here, Gelvin Valley. And also sounds like my volume is down a little bit, but let me get him going. This may be good enough. Very picturesque in the valley. Oh, and another thing I was attempting to do is fix the hillside levels here to where you could no longer see Yeah, see that rod, that cylinder there is just barely inside there. I think it's good. There we go. Yeah, see as he climbs the hill, now the straw goes all the way to the ground. Yeah, I like that much better. Oh, except I don't like that. You know, I thought I had that fixed, but I don't know, maybe that can be somewhat realistic. I remember we'd occasionally overfill the combines, and if you really did a poor job at it, it would come out on the ground, so it isn't too bad. Anyway, we'll get them unloaded. Trying to remember if I set up a course play here, and I don't recall. This is field number 41. No, I didn't. Well, we'll remedy that. I think I'm going to try to sell this, because obviously I am severely in the hole on my cash flow. Playing out of cap here, you get some appreciation of the topography of this map. This is a pretty steep ditch, so I know I don't want to wander down in here. Ah, see in there, I gotta suspend reality just a little bit. The combine, the output doesn't quite reach the trailer. It kind of stops midair. But I almost have to leave it that way, because if I go too much further, you'll be able to see when he's emptying into a trailer, you'll see the stuff pouring through the bottom of the trailer, and you can't really have that either. It's just some of the limitations of the game engine that we gotta put up with. I don't know if they were able to fix it in later versions of the game or not. Oops, driving over crop. I know there's a way to enable running over crop. Currently, I don't have it enabled. A lot of the times I play without that, even though it's not really realistic. And part of the reason is at least with my style of playing, is I depend heavily on course play. And course play, I think as we've seen so far, is comprised of a bunch of idiots trying to drive. And so to be a little bit more forgiving and give it space, you know, if I turned on crop destruction, the whole field would be destroyed as the drivers tried to figure out, you know, where to go. So I tend to just leave that off. Yeah, and I'm reminded of that as I look at the damage this thing has taken. You know, the trailer 33%, the tractor 41%. At some point, I think the damage mod will decrease the speed with which you're able to drive, or something. In some way, it keeps you from operating it normally until you get it fixed. And I'm probably about at that point, or maybe and it's over 50%. If any of you suffered through my previous videos, you may have noticed the bar at the top of the screen. I see there it's appearing now. I've talked to a friend of mine, and I think I have seen this bar show up even when I'm not recording, so I'm pretty sure it isn't my recording software that's doing it. And he suggested taking a couple mods out, the glance mod, and I think there was a compass mod I had in there. I barely use them. I do like the glance mod in particular, as it tells me who's full and who needs empty. Oh my goodness, I can't even pull this hill. But I don't have them on at the moment. I don't have them in there, and as you can see, I still got that silly bar up there, so I really don't know what's causing that, but oh well. I'll just have to maybe keep tinkering until I figure out a solution. I think this is gonna fill me up or get me close anyhow. So let me have him turn so I'm not in his way when I'm setting up the course. I'll just run this down and take it to Pheasant Pluckers and get her sold. course, the combine has to think about what it's doing before it does it. There we go. I got it started. Let's see if I can manage this. There's my first. Gotta get it two. There we go. There's my second. Try to sneak out of here. Be wary of the ditches. It is one thing in the game. The game is very fun, very good, very interesting, even economically, to learn the economics of a farm. But in real life, especially for something like grain, I don't know that you would typically just take it directly to market and sell it, or at least it wouldn't happen at a price you wanted to. You know, I was commenting a little bit ago, I'm damaged 41%, whatever it is, and I can only drive 26 miles an hour versus 32 that I think the tractor's capable of. So that's probably the impact of the damage. So at some point I'll get too slow, I'll have to fix it. And maybe grain is a little bit different. Maybe some places in the world you can take it and sell it immediately. I know here in the States where I live, I think a lot of it gets stored, it gets dried. Farmers wait a certain time of year when the prices are better, or they market it. I think that'd be an interesting mod someday to try to make, is something to market grain with. And by market, I mean like with contracts or forward contracts and futures contracts, maybe options. If someone could set up a market system in here where you could kind of track with the ad and do a little bit of trading on top of the farming, I think that'd be pretty cool. Probably be a lot of work to put it together though. Here's pheasant pluckers. Go in cab. I'll take the 2 cents that they give us to sell the crop. Man alive, 1,800 bucks. Just don't hardly make anything. Terrible farming. That's part of what makes this map so challenging. I know on the original notes to the map author himself said that he purposefully depressed the prices for grains and what have you for this region of the world. He left grass alone. But first year when I played this, I did grass and I didn't make anything. I tried turning it all into hay. I did every field I could, and I just didn't already make anything. But we're working on that. Whoops, oh, and I just nailed a ped. Now I'm probably going to get sued. But we'll just let the lawyer handle it. In later versions of the game, can't remember if I've mentioned this before, there was another mod that came out called Auto Drive, and where you could set up a system of roads or routes versus making a specific route like we're doing here for course play on every single task, that you wanted to do. That was really handy. I think there still is a place for course play, for doing field work and that kind of thing. And it improved, in later versions of the game. Man alive, coming back to FS15 and seeing how poorly some of the courses get generated on irregularly shaped fields, yeah, they're basically not very usable. But I still have it in here anyways. Maybe, just maybe a time or two, this guy will take some grain to market for me, so I can do something else. Yeah, and the farm I worked on in my growing up years, Lone Oak Farm, it was a grass seed farm, and boy, to my knowledge, I don't think they ever sold grass seed straight out of the field. Of course, there was other things we had to do on the farm to the seed to get it into a sellable state. Let me finish off the course here. This is 41. 41 to Pheasant County. Alright. Let me get him going. There we go. Why he's hugging the edge of the field, I don't know. Yeah, climb the hill when the combine is over on the other side. Let me try that. Nope, he still likes heading the opposite direction. I wonder if it needs to be lined up with the pipe, so let me try this. Wow. Oh, there we go. Finally swings around. There must be a certain amount of space it wants to give itself, or something. Come on. A little further up. There we go. Go over to this guy. But yeah, on the farm I worked on, we'd harvest the seed in the field, and it would be dirty. I mean, it always is, coming straight out of the combine. The combine does pretty well pulling out most of the chaff, straw, that kind of stuff. But there's differences in harvest, or crops that you harvest too. Grain like corn and wheat and that kind of thing, they tend to be fairly heavy. So the combine can actually do a pretty passable job of cleaning all the garbage out of it, because the chaff and straw and everything is much lighter than the grain, so it's easier to separate it out. The same isn't true for grass seed. I mean, the combine can do a fairly good job, but if you've ever seen grass seed before, a lot of it can be pretty light, fluffy stuff, and you have to be really careful how you set the machine to make sure you don't throw it all back out, on the ground. Just too much of a puff of air through it, will send good seed out the back. So a lot of times what happens is, they do the best they can with the combine to be efficient with how they set, whether it's the distance between the cylinder and the concaves, or the rotors in there, however that is, the sieves, the angle, the RPMs on the air. There's a number of settings you can make on a combine to to help it thresh better. And then they take the seed and they store it, and it kind of in the off season or following harvest season, if you will, it's run through a grass seed cleaner, they call it. And the grass seed cleaner is basically a machine that has a series of screens in it. And so obviously it's going to start at the top, it gets loaded in. There's a big old hopper for it to come through. I think near the top there's some air that gets applied to it that scalps off some of the chaff, the lighter stuff. And then it goes through a series of screens, and I'm trying to remember, I think there was at least 6 screens on it of varying sizes, and each one will pull off a particular bit of straw or a weed or that kind of thing. And then ideally at the bottom or near the bottom, you capture the good seed, and then hopefully it's mostly cleaned up by then. But a lot of times it still isn't cleaned up, and they got other machines. I mean, I could say the name of them, but it wouldn't really mean anything. But you'd be surprised what people have invented to try to clean seeds like this. Some of the most interesting contraptions you've ever seen. Rolling drums with these little pock marks in them where the seed will sit in it and or excuse me, the seed won't sit in it, rather the weeds. It'll pick up a tiny little weed, carry it in this pocket, dump it in an auger to haul it off, whereas the seed isn't picked up. So all these things someone somewhere has figured out on how to get, even the nastiest weeds cleaned out of the seed. And so anyway, it goes through this whole process, and I spent a ton of time in there as a kid in the cleaner, just keeping the machine full of material and emptying off the straw at the side or the chaff that came off, and taking that out and putting it in a place where we could dispose of it. In earlier years, I remember some of that chaff, they could even sell it. They would take it to a pellet mill, turn it into animal feed. It's really their waste, so they never made that much off of it. In later years, I think they just took it out back and dumped it, in a place where it could biodegrade. And then the good seed, of course, would be bagged up. And in the old days, I mean, each bag was 50 pounds. I mean, sack after sack after sack. I think the industry has moved to do more bulk now. But back when I was there, I mean, it was everything had to go into individual sacks, and we'd stack them on pallets, like we'd put 30 to a pallet, and that's what you'd do all day long. And some seeds were of the nature that you could run a lot of them through the machine really, really quickly. And so you really had to bust your backside keeping up with it all day long, and it was a workout. There's days you'd go in there and you'd be literally sweating all day long trying to keep up with the machines and keep them going. Then there were other varieties that were more, I'm trying to climb this hill, more fluffy varieties that, I mean, the machine, you couldn't even hardly get it to go through fast enough. And I mean, you could add all the time in the world. You could read a book, you could do a lot of things in there just while the machine was figuring out whether it was clean. Let me go check my combine. Yeah, looks like it's behaving. One never knows. So I spent a lot of time in there on the farm, all with the goal to get the seed cleaned and make it ready for market. And when I say market, I mean, usually I think my uncles had contracts set up for those with certain specs. They were allowed a certain amount of usually not weeds. I guess I would say inert matter, where you had to have like say 97 or 98% pure seed, but if you had a little bit of straw in there, or I think some weeds were allowed, but you weren't allowed a noxious weed. I guess noxious means it's perilous to the area or whatever. So anyway, you get through. It was certain lots. I remember we did it in 45,000-pound lots on all these pallets, and at some point in there, it gets sampled. I think at a university or someplace that did that for moisture content and all that, and the med contracts X, and it could be moved, and who knows when it would move. Sometime it'd be in the middle of the winter, sometime early summer, all dependent on when the seed company needed it and when they would request it and come pick it up. So there's a lot involved outside of the field work, that even to this day they still do. But and I've been back to Lone Oak, and they've continued. There's a lot of grass seed farms in this area, and a lot of them have their own seed cleaners, and work gets put into them over the years to make them more efficient. Better technology comes along, and so I mean there's been a lot of changes too over the years, and it's just made it easier and easier. What we used to work really hard at a long time ago has been made a lot easier, less labor intensive, and that's all for the better, I guess. Lone Oak never did do too much wheat. They would do a little bit over the years, but it was primarily a grass seed farm. I'm gonna sneak right along here. Maybe I'll just take a round around here and kind of get away from this here rock pile. I mean Stonehenge, or whatever it is. Last time we were in this field, there was kind of some creepy music playing, so we'll try to avoid that this time. I don't know what I'm doing here. Ring around the rosy. My course play. Yeah, see, right now I don't have glance in, so I can't tell what my combine's doing, and he's behaving. Why am I so distrustful? I think everybody here knows why I distrust the old combine. Well, I'll try to do a couple more here. The use of straw is something that changed quite a bit over the years too. I think I mentioned in a previous video, in my younger years on the farm, shoot, most of the straw was just burned. I mean, there's certain varieties of grass, you can't burn it, it'll kill it underneath, but most of the time during harvest, the grass would just be spread over the field, and we'd come in sometime late summer, early fall, and torch the field and burn it all up. But that was in the days before there was a market for straw, and now they seem to market the straw even as animal feed. I think a lot of it heads overseas to somewhere in Korea, Japan, where maybe they don't have the space to grow the foliage that they need, so we send it over there to them. Oh, I don't know if he's going to want to climb that hill. It gets really steep back in here. I don't know if the map author will ever see this. I let him know I was going to do a couple videos on this. I'd be curious if he, just looking at this, if what I'm doing with this is something he ever intended, when he made the map. This was all grass back here, so I had to take the plow and fix it all up in order to get a grain crop. Sure, I'm not farming according to how they do it in the UK or Scotland or Ireland or wherever this map is based on. But I am trying to drive on the left side of the road, so hopefully I get a little credit for that. Once again, I'm going to go see when my combine is up. See, there we go. That would just sit there forever. Yeah, in later versions of the game, the combine or anything moving in the field would have a lot more latitude on how they moved and get closer to other vehicles. But yeah, here it just seems like if you don't give it 50 meters, it isn't going to do anything. Now, can this guy find the door? We shall see. Yeah, I think he did. So now we'll see if we can trust him to go to market, and we'll continue on over here. This is right at the edge of the map, and I know you can see the edge over there, but I still think that's pretty good how he made the edge. Especially as you get into these trees here. Yeah, I'm messing up my earlier windrows, but I think it's for the best. I'll be coming in here later to drag the baler through here. When I first played this map, when it came out, I did a little bit of logging. I can't remember where. And I don't remember how good the economics were set for it. Yeah, I don't think you make too much on wood chips, and getting some of the better equipment's pretty expensive, and log handling back in FS15, well, let's just say it wasn't as good as in later versions. Some more improvements were made. Oh, come on, get up there. Yeah, in the past, that hill was pretty hard to plant. It was bumpier and all get out. And if the planter doesn't exactly touch the ground, well, then we'll plant any seed. Okay, I think I'll leave that one alone. That looks good enough. We just open the map and see how my... Oh, yeah, he's almost at pheasant pluckers. We can see him down there by field 55. Okay, maybe there's hope for course play yet. Turn off GPS. Finish up the windrowing here. Remember the first time I did some windrowing on the farm, I think I almost wrecked the tractor. Maybe, I don't know. I was left alone in a field. I finished the job, and It was this old tractor. I know I'm old enough already, but it was even several decades older than I was, just with this little side rake that I went into the field in. Got the job done, was on the way home, and I don't know, I guess I didn't have enough training on the tractor, or wasn't a very good driver, one of the two. And there was a hill to climb on the way back to the farm, and it wasn't that heavy what I was pulling, but I started getting really nervous because the RPMs were bogging down on the tractors. I was heading up this hill, and man alive, there at some point in there just started coughing and sputtering, and I mean, picture an RPM of about, well, let's see, that'd be per minute. It would be sub 60 RPMs. That's how it was, more than a second each crank of that tractor trying to get up that hill. I blamed or killed it. And who knows what I would have done with it if it wouldn't have made it up the hill. And not the first time I ever screwed something up on the farm. I don't know if I ever told my uncle that one either. So hopefully they don't ever watch this. I don't even know if they have that tractor anymore. Let me back this up into here. And let's go check on our combine. He's coming back, having incurred more damage. My goodness. And this thing, I've noticed as you get to the end, or the small triangle or square in the middle of the field, it gets harder and harder for the hired help to figure out. I don't know why that is. I'll maybe just do this myself. Someone, that's something else I wish I could fix. I lower the header and the thing jerks over hard. The bad thing is it's causing damage when it does that, which kind of stinks. But it doesn't do it all the time. So I'll lift her here now. We'll see if it does it on the way down. I'll even go inside the cab. Yeah, look at that jerk. I don't know if I've already dialed back the damage because of stuff like this. I don't know what it's doing. It could be something to do with how the leveling cylinders are set up. I don't know. The FS17 version of the mod, it did the same thing as I recall. We almost got this done. And once again, our driver Petey is looking for a fence, which is very offensive. But it is what it is. Great. Now it's stuck in the fence. Alright. This is why we have okay, I'm not sure. Well, that's interesting. It's putting the damage now right up on the vehicle. Not sure why it's doing that. And I think I'm going to come up here. I'm going to offload him. And I think I'm going to stop the video there and head on to the next one.